pour it, get lit. I'm about to pour it and get lit. Already know what I wanna mix. Turn up, all up in women voices. Feeling myself cause I'm wasted. Clumsy as hell, my fault. Just trying to find me a jump off. Closing my eyes while I'm in between. Wake up, don't remember a thing. It gets you in the mood.
Welcome to another episode of If You Cook, I'll Clean podcast. I'm your host, Eli Breeden. Today we're going to do Q&A, so we're just going to switch it up just a little bit. We'll have individuals call in. We'll give you the opportunity to ask one or two questions. Anything of your choice. I have my producer Tito over here will be taking calls, and we're just going to keep it light today. So let's start with our first caller today. Who do we have?
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Miss Parker.
Hey, Miss Parker, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking my call. I've been watching your podcast, If You Cook, I'll Clean, for a while now. Love the content, but guess my question is, how do you
Before you ask a question, you sound really young. Are you sure you're old enough to even be calling in?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. I'm listening. We'll determine that in a minute. What were you saying?
I think a mortgage payment and car notes and things like that will determine that.
Okay, you qualify. So, what's your question?
I guess, how do you know when a guy is serious about a relationship? We've been talking for a while.
What's a while?
It's been a year now.
Okay, if that's a while to you, that's fine.
Yeah, I just want to know if he's serious or not. I've asked him. He says that his intent is to be serious eventually. Right now we're just it's just a friendship, and I think he's honest in that. But when I talk about things like let's move forward, because he seems to be what I'm looking for in a way of a relationship. I don't want to be out here willy nilly. So I'm hoping that that's it. But I don't. What are key things? What are the flags to say, yep, this is where it's going, or no, you need to walk away?
I don't believe in those terminologies.
Okay, that's fair.
I just don't. I think you should naturally, if it's something that you desire, ultimately, just let them know. I mean, you can determine that. I mean, if to me, time is relevant, but not so much, because you have individuals who've been together for years and they don't particularly care for each other. So, and one of the things that you mentioned was, he wants a friendship, and you guys are in a friendship. That's where it starts. Make sure that part of it is solid first before you move to anything else. Now, depending on your trajectory, depending on your timeline, you have to determine for yourself what's going to work for you. That timeline may not work for everybody, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 10 years. Just make sure that friendship is established, because if you don't make sure that part is established, that's the foundation. Nothing else is going to be built upon that. Nothing else is it's not going to work. So your question was, how will you know if he's serious? Maybe you'll never know. Ask him. He'll tell you. We're simple. He'll let you know what he desires. He'll let you know what he wants. And trust me, whatever he's shared with you up to this point, believe him.
Well, when I ask definitive questions, I get evasive answers, and that seems to be the problem.
Well, maybe the problem isn't necessarily the questions. Maybe, no disrespect to you, ma'am, but maybe you're the problem. Because if you are asking questions and you feel like he's being evasive, if that's something that you don't necessarily want to put up with, or if that's something that you can't necessarily tolerate, why deal with it? So and I'm not saying you are the problem. I'm saying the problem could be that maybe you are allowing evasiveness to be a part of your life, and maybe you should try something different. Maybe you should try a different approach. And we only have a time for a couple of questions because we do have other people on the line. Hopefully, I did answer that question, and if not, you can feel free to call back another time. So, what is your next question?
The final thing would be, again, when I've asked definitively, how do you feel about moving forward? It's kind of sort of like the runaround, almost as if he wants to still not be there. Again, I like the friendship portion of it, but he's a nice guy. He's well to do for himself. Doesn't ask for anything from me, and vice versa. But I don't. The time thing isn't what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what we would be looking at moving forward, and I think this is going to be a lot of the same. So I just thought that there was maybe a red flag or something to say, yep, this is it, or no, you need to let go. So that was what the question was based on.
I don't know. And honestly, I'm not an expert in this field. I just know that we are simple. We're going to tell you what it is that we want. So if the man told you that he desires a friendship, leave it at that. I mean, don't expect any more from that.
Okay.
Because one thing that will happen if you attempt to force that man into something that he doesn't want to be in, it's not going to work anyway. And he already pretty much told you where he stands. If that's something you can tolerate, or if that's something that you're willing to deal with at the moment, and I'm not using the correct terminology, surely, but I mean, then that's a decision that you'll have to make. Do you want to spend that time recycling another individual in and out of your life and going through the same thing, or do you want to try to make this lead to something? And also, you attract who you are, whatever that means. It may not necessarily be a 100%. That person may not mirror you 100%, but you attract who you are. So keep that in mind. If there are some things qualities that you don't like about individuals that you're attracting, maybe there's some things that you can change within yourself.
I accept that. That's a fair statement.
Okay, ma'am, you sound fairly young. I hope you're not catfishing us today. But
I promise you, my bills say so.
Okay, sounds good to me, ma'am. You have a pleasant evening. Okay.
You too, and thanks again for taking my call.
Yep. Hey guys, that first call was very interesting. If we don't get an opportunity to bring you into the call, don't feel bad about it. We're gonna have plenty of these, and we're gonna keep this going, hopefully every week. So, who do we have the pleasure of speaking with now?
Good evening. My name is Jill, and I'm calling from North Carolina.
Hey Jill, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I just want to thank you so much. I did read your book, If You Cook, I'll Clean, and I just want to express that the book provided support for both men and women. And these podcasts that shows that you're doing and these discussions are creating a community of strength and encouragement. So I want to thank you this evening for providing this platform.
That sounds so rehearsed. Please let people know we do not know each other, and we did not rehearse this. So we're gonna have to bring you on the team. That was excellent. That we might have you introduce us whenever we are doing speaking engagements. So what's your first question, ma'am?
Okay, my first question is, do you think that the economy is forcing people to commit to relationships that might otherwise seem unhealthy?
That is hilarious. I think individuals have gotten into relationships for absolutely the wrong reason, and that's one of them. I don't think you should ever make compromises when it comes to relationships based on your financial need. But obviously, we know that happens. So I'm sure that's happening. I'm sure that happens. Absolutely, people get married for financial reasons. They need help paying the bills, or they want a roommate. So absolutely, I believe that's the case. I can't really drill into it any more than that. I'm not an expert in terms of the economy, but it's very difficult out here to survive off of one income, regardless of what your salary it is. Unless you're a millionaire, like, it is very difficult to survive off of one income. And I'm sure it happens, but absolutely, yeah, people are getting into relationships because they need help paying bills. And hopefully I did answer that question.
Yes.
Okay.
So my next question is, with these open relationship forums that you're conducting, what key takeaway do you want to communicate to listeners, regardless of our relationship category?
That ultimately, my focus and my goal is to bring families back together. So it may seem divisive from a one-dimensional perspective if you're reading the book, and let's say, for instance, a woman, because generally women are reading the book. So they get an opportunity to actually see, from a male's perspective, what it is what conversations are going on behind their back. So they may interpret it as men being divisive, but that's far further from the truth. I think we need to start having these true conversations and real conversations, so we can hash these things out, not someone being fake and someone just getting along to go along to be in a relationship. I mean, who is that benefiting? You're always doing things to please someone else. That's not healthy. Ultimately, something's going to give. Something. Someone is going to suffer in those type of situations. So ultimately, I want individuals to start coming together, so we can start getting our families back.
But I did have just another comment in terms of my intake from what I gathered from the book. I felt like your book is giving hope for those who desire to be in a healthy, committed relationship free of outside influence. So I do have a question for you regarding, can a relationship last without sexual contact?
Can a relationship last without sexual contact? Is that? Of course it can. I mean, I would I don't know. I would sound, I don't know the term, but I think I would sound as if I didn't have a moral compass. Let's say that if I thought otherwise, I mean, technically, do you mean as boyfriend girlfriend, or do you mean as in marriage?
Well, I think in terms of intimacy versus sexual relations.
No, but I mean as girlfriend and boyfriend, or do you mean marriage?
Relationship normally starts girlfriend, boyfriend, that leads to marriage. So either or.
No. So marriage is just a little bit different, unless there's, some health issues going on. But if the two of you guys are healthy, why wouldn't you want to have intimacy? But I'm going to go back to my original statement. Yes, it can absolutely last, but depending on the individuals, depending on your faith, depending on your beliefs, why would you want to? And if you read that book, you do understand that that's some guys, or most guys, like number one desire out of the three.
Exactly. I was just asking the question in terms of just some of the scenarios that you gave.
Right.
And yes.
So yes, it can survive. It can survive. It can survive. It depending on the two individuals, but if both of you guys are healthy and everything is working, and especially if you're married, why would you want to be in a sexless marriage? So
Exactly. So if it's okay, I'm gonna move to my next question.
Okay, we're gonna limit these questions to 2 or 3, but we're going to extend this offer to you, ma'am. So what is your next question?
Okay. Should a man submit and allow the woman in the relationship or marriage to be in charge of all or most of the household affairs, including finances?
Can you phrase that question again? You don't just naturally, just whatever your thoughts are. But
Well,
can you phrase it again?
Can the female be the lead in the relationship in terms of running the household and finances?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, if that individual is better with money, absolutely they should. I don't think it should be relegated to someone based on gender. I think it should be relegated based on responsibility and how disciplined someone is. So definitely, yeah, under those circumstances, absolutely they should. Is that okay? Does
Yes.
that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Do you have there's someone else joining with you today,
Yes.
or
Someone's joining right now.
okay? Who do we have?
We have John from Ohio.
John Lawson. Good evening, people.
Hey, how's it going, John? How are you?
I am well. I am well.
Good. So what do we have today? We're doing Q&A, and we just answering a few questions. What you got for us today?
First, I'd like to say good evening to our listening audience, and I'm so thankful
Good evening.
that you putting on this type of forum for the education of our people. And one of the questions I want to ask is, what do you see yourself with this initiative? Where do you see us, men and women? Where do you see us in the near future as far as relationship-wise? I'm trying to really, in my mind, reestablish old values and old traditions in this
Absolutely.
new age world.
Absolutely. So I think it's a start. I don't think it's necessarily the all-inclusive, answer, but I think it's a start. I think it starts with conversation. So I think we have to, start having these real and honest conversations with each other, and from there we can build upon that. So obviously the book is from a male's perspective, and the next book is going to be from a female's perspective, but it gives if a woman reads the books, it gives them the opportunity to listen, without going back and forth. So it's a start. Like you like I mentioned in one of the other shows, you can't argue with the book. You can try, but it just gives you an opportunity to just listen to what men are saying, listen to what how they feel, and formulate your opinion, subjectively, or whatever you decide to do from there. But the book is an honest book. It's honest conversations. None of the conversations are fabricated. I'm sorry. So ultimately, we want to start the conversation so we can start bringing these families back together.
I want to thank you for your insight.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate you guys. We appreciate you guys calling in, and hopefully, you guys can catch us for another Q&A. And we appreciate you guys calling in today.
Thank you.
We've had some very interesting guests so far who's called. And keep in mind, guys, we only have time for like 2 or 3 questions based on the volume of people that are actually calling in. But who do we have with us today?
This is Christine.
Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. What you got for us today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for picking my call.
You know what? You're 1 in a million, so you were the lucky one today.
That's a good thing. but excited to be here. And I read your book about a year ago
Okay.
and have been following you on social media.
Okay.
And then I saw where you were having a call in podcast. So I dialed in and was hoping that I'd be able to get on.
Okay. Well, you're on now. What's and listen, we appreciate your support throughout the year, and hopefully you found the book to be insightful to some degree. So, what's your first question?
My first question is, how did you come up with the name of the book?
How did I come up with the name of the book? So, it happened many years ago. God gave me the name of this book. I was married at the time, and I believe I was walking from my kitchen to my den, and that's when that name just fell upon me. I can't really explain it. Don't want to be too spiritual necessarily on this show, but God gave me the name, and as soon as He gave me that name, it was almost like I was birthed, with something, and I was given light, even in a moment where, I couldn't really see past my, present circumstances at the time, because at that particular point in time, I remember things just not really going that well for me. But to answer your question, God gave me the name of this book.
Wow. Now, are some of these stories about you, personal experiences that you've had?
Absolutely not. And if they were, I would never admit to it. So, absolutely not. So, a lot of these stories came from barbershop settings across the United States. So, I travel a lot, with my job. So, I have the opportunity to visit different barbershops around the country. So, I had the opportunity to speak to um, a lot of different barbers, sit in the barber shop, and that's a part of my history as well. But I gathered a lot of these conversations through true barbershop experiences with individuals talking to their barber, and vice versa.
Well, I really think that that's one of the things that I found the most interesting with your book because all of us have been in barbershops. And as a female going in a barbershop, I think that was, and I have to be honest, when I saw the title, I didn't realize, necessarily that's what it was about. I was just thinking, just a catchy title for maybe one of those, relationship books that's, giving you a formula for a relationship. So I think what just truly entertained me in the whole thing was the fact that that is not what I've seen go on in a barbershop. And I think once I got into the book and started reading, some of the chapters and the stories, it became very entertaining. And, was just wondering, you know, the people who've read it, do they give you feedback on, they're employing that or they're trying that?
Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, we have gotten different feedback. Most people who do just look at the title, they think it's about compromising and relationships, and unfortunately, and I shouldn't say unfortunately, there are some stories in the book, about compromising, but for the most part, it's about relationships from a male's perspective, their personal experiences in those relationships, and how they navigate in and out of those relationships. So to answer your question, absolutely, individuals will look at the book and they'll have the same interpretation as you had initially. But what I wanted to do was not only capture their attention, but I wanted to keep their attention when they started reading the book. So yes, it's a draw to bring you in, but after you are brought into the book, I just want to capture and keep your attention by keeping the audience entertained, and letting them have some insight into how men really feel and how we think.
No, I think it was very illuminating, and I know that you know we have a lot of thoughts and preconceived notions. We always want to know what someone's thinking, but to see it that way in a conversation, that's what makes it so different. And I have to ask people that you've had in the book, has anyone ever said to you, "Was that me?" Or
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Yeah and no. I think some of the conversations that were captured and written, I did in some respects try to manipulate and make certain modifications so it wouldn't be so obvious. So didn't use any names, wasn't too descriptive in certain scenarios. However, it's impossible to manipulate certain stories to the degree that it just doesn't seem honest or real anymore. So, yes, I've had a couple of questions like, were you talking about me? And obviously, I had to say no, that I wasn't, because honestly, these from a man's standpoint of view, and I need to answer another one of your questions as well, but from a man's standpoint of view, it's every man, because every man, whether they've been in a relationship, whether they've been married, whether they've gone through a bad breakup, a bad marriage, a divorce, they can relate to almost every story in the book. So, and to answer your question before, you were speaking about when you go into the barbershop, or when you did go in the barbershop, the conversations change when women come in the barbershop. Believe it or not. Same thing you guys are, when guys come into the beauty salon, I'm sure you guys change up the conversations, but they really change in the barbershop. Like, when you're coming in, Kirk Franklin and all of these gospel artists are playing in the background, but as soon as you leave out, they're changing the station to something different, and they're having conversations about you guys once again. So, and I know I didn't answer that question, but yeah, you wouldn't really get the true, unless you spend a lot of time in the barbershop, you wouldn't really get a true feel of, how the barbershop environment and how that atmosphere truly is.
well, I love that it's just a new take and a new delivery on just relationships in general. And I think that the perspective that you have provided to your audience, it's fresh, it's new, and I absolutely love it. And you should just keep it coming.
Sounds good. We appreciate your feedback and your questions today, and feel free to call in anytime.
Absolutely, I'll be tuning in the next time.
Okay. Have a good evening, ma'am.
Oh, you too, and thank you.
Uh huh.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye. That was an interesting call. So, who do we have next on the line?
Good evening. My name is Tiana Hudson.
Tiana Hudson. How are you, young lady?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Grand Prairie, Texas.
Grand Prairie, Texas. Okay. All right. All right. What questions do you have for me today?
Okay, Mr. Breeden, I have enjoyed reading your book. I have been following you for about a year now, and I think it's a great read. I also think that it was more from the male's perspective. Do you plan to have a part two of this book? Maybe the female's point of view for your book?
Absolutely. It's already in the making. So, even when I was writing this book, I had already determined while I was writing it that it would be a part two, and it would be from the female's perspective, or the woman's perspective. So, yes, I've already determined that, and I've already gotten some things together to start on that project.
Awesome. That's great to hear. So where do you think you will film this part two?
When do
In a
what?
beauty
When do what
salon?
now? Say that again.
Where do you plan to film this? The first setting was in a barbershop setting. So do you have a setting in mind?
Not really. You maybe the beauty salon. I mean, it would only be right to, capture a lot of those conversations from the beauty salon, but not necessarily one particular place. But I'll probably start there or wherever a lot of women congregate. But yeah, I would start in the beauty salon. So yes.
That would be great. And that's where we do congregate. And we have our talks as well.
Okay. Sounds good to me. You have you have any more questions for me?
Let me see. Do you plan to have any plays in the future?
So I've already executive produced a stage play called "If You Cook, I'll Clean" a few years back. So anything's possible. It's a lot of work behind the scenes, and just getting certain construction together as it relates to financial obligations and things of that nature. So maybe it's possible. I may.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's definitely a must read. I've shared it with friends and family, and
Okay.
I think more of the women are reading the book. And do you have a lot of guys that talk about the book? A lot. Have you asked a lot of guys? Have they purchased your book? Or
To
read your
to
book?
be perfectly honest with you, some guys have they've read the book, and I've gotten some feedback from some guys, but most of my base have been women. So
Okay.
mostly just women, but yes, I've gotten some feedback from some guys, and a few guys have read the book, but my base is women. That's who typically read the book, and it's for both audiences. However, it's written from a male's perspective, so it just gives a woman insight into how we think. So generally and naturally, women are going to be drawn to this book, but it's a read for both.
That's great. Well, I think it's a great read, and continue to stay blessed. And I wish you well. And I'm looking forward to the second book to come out.
Okay, we appreciate you calling in. Feel free to call in anytime. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
your
welcome.
support.
Thank you.
Uh huh.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
That last call was pretty interesting. It was pretty good. Who do we have for our next caller?
Hey, it is Jessica. I am so glad that I made it through. I'm a really huge fan of your book, and I just want to say that I support you, and I'm so happy that you took my call.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, what is your first question, ma'am?
So, I want to know what's been your most memorable, client or conversation that you've had.
That's very interesting. Keep in mind that not only did these conversations come from, during the time that I was in the industry, but it came from, different settings. But that's a really good question. You're gonna actually make me think. How about this? I don't know of one particular one that stands out, but I'll try. Right. So, one of the conversations was about a guy who found himself in a very unfortunate situation, right? So his girlfriend, wasn't his wife, accidentally left her phone behind on her way to a mother's house, I believe, or wherever she told him he was going, and the phone was constantly ringing, to the point where he knew that it wasn't right to pick up her phone, but he kept seeing the same number come across this young lady's phone. So eventually he answered the phone, and it's not funny. I apologize, but he eventually answered the phone, and unbeknownst to him, it was the guy that she had been dealing with all along on the phone. So, and if you remember the story, if you read the book, they actually had a conversation. This guy told him every single detail about this man's life, and what makes it difficult, right? Or what made it difficult for him was he really he really put a lot of trust in this woman. Like, he did everything for her, to the point where she didn't have to pay any bills, you know, she didn't want for anything. So after having that conversation with him, obviously he was crushed, not to the point where he wanted to do anything to himself, but he was just really hurt. And he expressed that to his barber, and his barber told him, you know what, man, there's plenty of fish in the sea, don't and also don't hold this against every woman. Like, it was just one woman who did this to you. And he further goes to tell him that you can eventually find love again. But he was so hurt because he invested a lot in this woman, and for her to do something like that to him, he just couldn't believe it. He was in shock. So that's one of the stories. There's so many, but that's one of the ones that stands out.
Yeah, well, look, that's her loss, right? Her loss.
I
and
suppose.
That was her advice. Yes.
I suppose.
Well, thank you for taking my call.
Anytime. That's all the questions you have for me. You doing
I
good.
got one more.
Okay, we got time.
All right.
What's
Is there
up?
a part 2 coming?
Absolutely, there's a part 2 coming.
Okay.
And one of the last callers asked the same thing, but there's definitely a part 2 coming, and I'll make that announcement on YouTube, on the podcast, whenever that product is featured, or whenever it's completed. I'll let everyone know. But thank you for your support. We appreciate you calling in.
Absolutely. You have a good night.
You do the same.
All right.
Bye bye. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of If You Cook Out Clean. I think we're gonna keep this Q&A going. What do you think, Tito? What did you think about it?
Absolutely, we're great.
Okay, that's what it is. So yeah, we're gonna keep this going. Because we're getting a lot of different feedback. Whether good or bad, we embrace it all. Only ultimately, it's just gonna make us better. So we'll have a number that you guys can call in the future to keep this Q&A going, so we can continue having these real conversations. And once again, we appreciate you guys tuning in to the If You Cook Out Clean podcast.
Get lit. Martina turn me on when she mix it. Sugar on the rim of the cup, lick it. Head back, killed it. Ooh, off my head, feeling it. They just making my song go to remix. A baby me getting it on the dance floor.